Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper and the 2023 Christmas Card Series, where I make my Christmas cards and take you along for the ride. So get comfy and let's get crafty. I am going to use my Cricut machine today, and I thought I would show you how I upload pictures. So I click the upload, I click the browse, and I have this snowflake picture I've already downloaded. It's in the download folder on my computer, so I'm going to select that image and put it into my design space. I always select complex items or images because then I don't have to worry about it as much. If you scroll down, you can see that there's two options for erasing the background. I'm going to come over here and click erase, and it's done. So then I can click save. Now there are also two options. You can save it as a cut file, or you can save it as a print then cut. I only want the cut file. I'm also going to name it Snowflakes or Snowflake in the main box. And then the other tags, I'm also just going to add Snowflake because what else would I call it? Once it has been saved, I can click on that image, and then I can click down in the right corner, select or place on canvas. Now it is going to come huge. It is a PNG image. It's going to be huge. So I'm just going to go up to the sizing bar and make it 4 inches. So once I have made that 4 inches using my number pad on my computer, it shrinks the whole thing down, keeping it in proportion. I want to make shaker cards today. I'm going to do a 2-for-1 shaker card. And I want this to be, for one of the cards, I want the shaker bits to be seen through the cutout of the snowflake. So I have made this snowflake 4 by 5 1/4 inches, and I am adding a shape to my desktop. This is the rounded corner rectangle. Turns out the rounded corners disappear, but whatever. I also made that 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. I'm going to place a snowflake on top. And once I have all the sizing just right, I want the top and bottom and the sides of the snowflake to go right to the edge of the rectangle. Once I have that done, I'm going to select both images, and in the Align button, I'm going to center it vertically, and then I'm going to center it horizontally, and that will put the snowflake right dead in the middle. Then I'm going to select them again and hit the Slice button down at the bottom right. Once I've hit the Slice button, I can pull apart the pieces I don't need, which are the 2 cutout pieces. And what I want is this background here. So I'm just going to select the 2 cutout pieces and delete them. This is going to be tricky because of all those little cutout pieces in the middle. I have to save that as well. So we're going to get rid of the parts I'm not going to use. And then we're going to go ahead and make it. So I've sent it through my Cricut machine, and there are a couple of places where the blade didn't quite cut. I think my blade needs to be replaced. So I'm just bringing out a little finger knife. And I need to take out all of the edges, but remember, the edges are the part I want to keep for the first card. So I've sped through this. It's like 800 times normal speed because this took a minute. I was very, very careful with how delicate these pieces were, especially that snowflake in the center, because I want to use that for my second shaker card. So once I have the snowflake picked up off of my Cricut mat, and I've left all of those little pieces down where they belong, I'm going to pull out some acetate here. Now this is Hero Arts acetate. It came in the like October Hero monthly kit. I'm going to be using this acetate for my shaker today. And you can't really see what's going on, so I'm going to put a piece of white cardstock behind it. And then I decided it would be wise to stick that white cardstock to my Cricut mat and tape the acetate in place. That became very necessary. In order to put all of the pieces back, I have to put that snowflake back in the middle. And I can't glue it down because then the glue will show on the acetate. So I have to be really careful how I am doing this. Again, I've sped this up like 800 times normal speed. But I really did work very, very slow getting all of those pieces put together correctly. Especially when it came time for those middle pieces, I dropped a little bit of glue in the center of all of those cutouts. And using my tweezers and my little Cricut spatula, I pulled each one of those little pieces up and got them inserted back into their position. The fun part after this was to get that snowflake out without tearing the snowflake and without peeling anything up off the acetate. I think if I had been gluing this down on paper, it would have been much less successful, but the acetate was a little bit slick, so I think that helped a little bit. So once I've gone ahead and pulled out this snowflake, you'll be able to see the gorgeous front of our shaker card. And it did take a minute. I mean, I sped that up substantially, but look how pretty that is. Okay, I need to make a frame. So I've pulled out this kind of silver holographic, it's kind of a thicker card. It's not, I guess it is more of a cardstock than a pattern paper. It's almost poster board thick. I'm going to use my waffle flower A2 layer dies to make a frame. So I'm using the largest frame, the one that is 5.5 by 4.25 inches. And then I'm skipping one and going down to the third largest. And in order to make sure the frame is even, I'm going to tape those dies together. But I'm going to use the grid mat on my work surface to make sure that they're lined up properly. And I'm just going to use a little bit of low-tack tape. This is washi tape that just sits on my desk. And I'm going to then put them back on the front of that silver paper. And then I'm going to run that through my die cut machine. I'm taping it in place so it doesn't shift or move at all when I'm die cutting it. And now that we have run it through the die cut machine, I can go ahead and disassemble it. The tape does get pushed down, so it's a little bit difficult to get that tape off without tearing the paper. I have to be really careful. I also don't want to put a hole or a scratch on the frame that I intend to use. So yeah, it's kind of a little tricky. But once I got that taken apart, I have my frame. So I'm going to add the frame to the front of the blue cardstock with some very strong double-sided adhesive. Again, I've sped this up because this is the part that is again, time-consuming, but absolutely necessary to take your time and do right. You want to get that adhesive on. You don't want it to stick out past the frame because the front of our card is clear and blue and it will show. So once I have that, I'm going to stick that white paper back there again just so you can see. And this is where I said that rounded corner kind of disappeared because I made the frame with not rounded corner dies. And I did contemplate going back through and corner chopping those, but I didn't. So for the background of my card, I have this piece of white kind of pearlescent paper. This was also a Hero Arts paper from one of their card kits. I don't remember their monthly kits. I don't remember which one. But here comes the fussiest part of this entire card. I need to create a foam tape frame and put foam tape on behind all the blue pieces of that shaker window. So I've doubled up the foam tape and then cut it in half narrow-wise. And I did have to trim it just a little bit on the top here. And then I will use the same double tall pieces of foam tape to put foam tape all over the back of this shaker panel. You need to make sure that your corners all touch completely so that your shaker bits cannot fall through. And now it's time to start putting things together. I have a white card base and I have my kind of pearlescent paper. I'm going to use double-sided adhesive to put my pearlescent panel onto my card front. Everything on my desk is falling over because there's so much stuff on my desk. I have no more workspace. I have a package of Honeybee Stamps sequin mix. This is called Blue Jeans. It came as a freebie in one of my orders this summer. And I just dumped half of that bag into that shaker panel. The whole half of the bag, I kind of smashed it down a little bit. And now I have to remove all of that backing off of that foam tape. And I have to be slow there because if I jostle the panel too much, all of those sequins are going to go flying. And now that all of that backing paper is off, I'm going to put the card back or the card base right down onto my card panel. And it's shaking and it's gorgeous. And I love the look. It needs a sentiment. So I'm pulling out the Christmas, Honeybee Stamps Christmas word. It's the word die and coordinating stamp set. And I have cut the background out of that silver iridescent paper or the shadow. There's two shadows in these word dies. They have a stitched shadow and a not stitched shadow. I used the stitched version today. I'm putting a little bit of Tombow glue on the back of my Christmas word die. Don't throw away your little tittle, the dot to your eye. I accidentally knocked mine on the floor. It took me a minute to find it, but I did. I found it. Gratefully, because I had just swept my floor like not too many days ago. So the little blue dot stood out. I am going to adhere this right across the center of that card there. I need to stamp one of the sentiments, one of the support sentiments. I'm going to stamp blessings. And I stamped it on a piece of blue cardstock. I thought maybe it would fit on this little scrap. It's a little too long. It didn't work there. So I'm going to stamp it in white pigment ink, and then I'm going to heat emboss it with silver embossing powder. And I'm just using a stamp block here. I didn't feel like pulling my Misty up. Okay, true story. I couldn't find my Misty on my desk at this point. I am going to prepare that cardstock with an anti-static powder tool. And then I'm going to ink up the sentiment stamp with, this is Concord 9th white pigment ink. It was the first one I grabbed in my little cube drawer. And stamp that down. I'm going to hold it for a second. I'm not going to squish it. I'm just going to hold it. I'm going to add some silver embossing powder. This is Tailored Expressions because it was the first silver jar I pulled out of my desk drawer. And then I'm going to clean that up real quick and heat set that. Again, speeding that super fast through. It really only took maybe 30 seconds to heat set that because it's such a small piece. And then I trimmed it out, and I don't like the blue on the blue. So I decided to go ahead and adhere that blue word strip to a piece of that silver paper again. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down with some liquid glue so that I can make sure that it's straight. And then we'll trim that out and get ready to adhere that to the front of my card as well. I'm putting this down on paper and acetate, so I'm using liquid glue. The cut open spaces are the acetate, so I want the glue to stick there nicely and not slip around or peel off. I'm going to hold that down with my fingers for just a minute and then add the blessings word underneath it. And that is card number 1. Now we're going to do a different approach to a shaker card with the second snowflake with the cutout part. I have that other piece of the white pearlescent cardstock, and I have an old stamp packaging. This is just the wrapper that came around as a set of stamps. I don't even know when. Sometimes I keep them, sometimes I don't. My stash right now is kind of large, so I haven't been saving them. But what I'm going to do first is glue the snowflake down to that white pearlescent powder. And I need to get glue on all of the pieces of this snowflake, or the sequins are going to get lodged behind it and maybe even pull it off the paper as it gets shaken around and gets sent to the mail and stuff like that. So I'm adding a little bits of glue to all of those snowflake, I don't know what the word for that, the ends, the tails, I don't know. And then I'm eyeball centering the snowflake into my card panel. It is not going to touch the top and bottom because it is smaller than the card panel. And then I'm going to lay my card panel onto the stamp packaging. And I pulled out a 1/4 inch double-sided tape. This is that tear tape that is really strong adhesive. And I'm putting a line of adhesive as close to the edge as I can get without going over on all 4 sides. And once I have that part done, I can start wrapping the card panel in that stamp packaging. So I'm lifting up the bottom tape, the bottom edge of tape, and just pulling that packaging around the side of it, the bottom of that, right? And then I will peel off one side and peel off the other side and fold the sides over as well. Now, one side needed to be trimmed down. I had left it just a little bit too large, which I do that in general just so that I have enough material to work with. I'm going to fold that down. I am not removing the adhesive on the top just yet. I did trim the top down a little bit. And then I'm going to open that bag of sequins from Honeybee and dump it right into the front of my card, my little pouch now. So I'm going to take the backer off the adhesive now, and then I'm going to do a little more trimming on that top flap. It's still just a little bit too long. I don't need all that. And I'm going to trim the corners off too. One thing I do just because I'm extra is I trim off the corner flaps and then I put tape over those edges, Scotch tape. I don't think you actually need this, to be honest, but I don't want anything flopping out of this card, especially if it goes through the mail. So there is like a whole nother way to do a shaker card. I'm going to put that same double-sided adhesive on the back of my card panel. This is really strong adhesive. I'm going to put it along all 4 sides. And then I'm going to put some liquid glue in the middle. This pearlescent cardstock is a little bit slick. So just for, well, just because I'm extra, we've already established that, I'm going to add some more strong adhesive to the center of the card panel. And then I'm going to line that up with my card base. And all we need now is a sentiment. I have another honeybee stamp and die set. This one says Mary. So I've cut the Mary out of blue paper and the shadow, the stitched shadow out of that iridescent kind of holographic silver, not iridescent, holographic silver cardstock. I'm lining up the word die on the shadow, and I'm going to stamp the word Christmas from that coordinating set. And I almost stamped it on blue cardstock again, but I remembered I didn't really love the blue on the blue, so I went ahead and pulled in a scrap of white cardstock and just stamped Christmas on the white cardstock with black ink. Again, I'm just using a stamp block because my Misty is buried. I'm using VersaFine Nocturne Black ink, or VersaClair, there we go, VersaClair Nocturne Black ink. Stamping down in the corner, I'm going to trim that off with my paper trimmer, add a little bit of glue because, again, we're on a slick surface. I want it to stay stuck. And this card now says Merry Christmas. So 2 ways to make shaker cards out of one die cut that I created on my Cricut. I hope you learned a little something and enjoyed the video I have made for you today. I hope you're getting ready to get your Christmas cards in the mail. It's almost time. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I have a couple of other videos.